In your experience, what is marketing planning?
Yeah, marketing planning differs from organization to organization. What I mean is for large organizations with like 150 to 300 marketing team, the marketing process is different there. For small size organization, marketing planning is different. And for startup, marketing planning is different. So it is very counterintuitive to expect to use a marketing planning template across all three. So what exactly is marketing planning? Marketing planning is just you're trying to get to a future state, and then you're planning all the activities backward that would lead to that desired future state. It's not set in stone. There are a lot of processes involved for you to get and achieve marketing planning. There's a strategic part of marketing that kind of goes from a strategic level, and there's the execution part. So what I'm trying to say is there's marketing planning and there's marketing execution. Oftentimes, a lot of effort is put into planning, while the execution part is just ignored.
So, in your experience, what are the practical steps that need to be taken in order to create an effective marketing plan?
There's a lot of frameworks out there, but what I'd like to highlight is some of these frameworks were created 20 years ago, even further back, before Google, before the internet, before social media, before marketing has become communication. Because marketing now is a two-way communication. Customers have a voice. They don't rely in one-way communication through traditional media. So a lot of the marketing planning models were not created for this situation. So what I've seen is you have frameworks like SOSTAC, which is a very, very common marketing model. But the problem with planning models like SOSTAC is they're not created in an agile way. If you look at SOSTAC, it's very, very academic. So when you look at marketing planning, again, you need to look at the spectrum. You have the academic, extreme theoretical marketing planning processes and models that are not tailored for actual real world. And then you have the extreme that are more in the weed, but don't have that academic principle of marketing. So before you start marketing planning, ask yourself the question, where are we now? And where are we trying to get to? And then in between, there's how do we get there? So those are the three steps of marketing planning. So you can use situation analysis, then you identify your goals and objectives, your KPIs, and then you look at the marketing ways of working.
So can you give us a real life example of a situation analysis?
You look at your organization. You ask important questions like, who are your target customers? Sometimes people say everyone is our customers. That is not really ideal. You need to narrow down. In every customer base, you also have segments as well. You need to know some customers are just going to be one-off customers. Some customers are going to be repeat customers, but they won't stay for you for too long. And some customers are going to be with you for years. So you need to look at those customer segments, have a mindset to just target your ideal customer, identifying your high value customers. So once you've identified that, then what most people will do is they'll look at competitors. And this is a very, very dangerous thing, because your competitors might be doing a terrible thing. And if you focus heavily on your competitor, then you're really copying the bad things that they're doing. So I always recommend just focusing on your customer, identifying their persona, and then look at the stages of their purchase journey. Every organization and every customer segment will have a customer journey. So that journey starts before they hear about a product or service, up to when they buy from you, up to after they buy from you. How do you then bring them back? And then you then talk about customer experience, and then you talk about word of mouth marketing. So your marketing planning needs to look at those stages, and how do you communicate with those customers at the awareness stage, at the engagement stage, at the conversion stage, at the post-purchase level, and how do you then make them loyal customer brand advocate? So your marketing plan needs to list those activities that you would use to communicate at those different portions. Another thing you also need to pay attention when you're looking at the customer journey, You need to be able to identify the emotions of your customers. In some instances, certain interactions, certain engagement would give them high emotional peaks. Sometimes it would bring them low. Being able to identify and communicate to cater for those emotional stages will ultimately help your customer experience. You find situations where someone will buy a product and then will start having a bad experience, not from your pre-purchase, but from your post-purchase. So your marketing planning, in essence, doesn't need to be isolated to the marketing team alone. So you need to bring your customer experience, customer service team, you need to bring your subject matter, product team. Everybody needs to be involved in the planning process. So what I've seen in organizations is you have situations where the hierarchy, the people at the top, are the strategic people. These people set the marketing budget, your CMOs, your head of marketing, head of digital. They are strategic. They are not executional. What I mean by that is the people that execute marketing strategy, the people that execute the activity, in most instances do not have a voice. They're just told, this is the strategy, go execute. And you find situations where the people involved in planning are not even involved in the execution. And there's a disconnect there. So for you to have an effective marketing planning, your senior stakeholders need to be involved in the execution. And in the execution phase, because once you have your strategic objectives and you have, this is the channel we're going to chase, you set your marketing objective. For you to have an effective marketing plan, you also need to empower people at the execution level to be able to iterate. When you talk about agile way of doing and executing marketing, if you don't empower people to execute, to iterate and make decisions about, when I say decisions, I mean moving money around. Is this campaign not working? Is this channel not working? How do you move money around? When you don't empower them or involve them in the planning process, then you have a problem. Most organizations, when you're trying to start your marketing planning, you go to your data. But I've seen situations where the data is essentially crap. Why is the data crap? Because you've created a marketing campaign, a website, a mobile app without good customer insight, and you've waited for a year. That crap you created has now churned out crap data, and now you're now relying on that crap data to create a marketing plan. So it's a vicious cycle of wasting of money, and we can go on and on about this.
So it sounds like there's a lot of different streams of data that feed into the marketing planning and execution process. So for somebody who wants to manage marketing planning and execution in an effective way, how do they manage those multiple streams of data in an effective way so they don't just have a complete data overload?
So data, most organizations have data. There are huge analytics tools out there that collect data, but you still have the problem with conversion. So you're getting all this data and the data is inevitably becoming noise. In my experience, the part that is always lacking when it comes to marketing planning is qualitative insights. Qualitative insights from a voice of the customer perspective. Let me give you an example. Just imagine hypothetically, you do not have any analytics data. Let's just go with that. How do you do your marketing planning? Marketing planning has existed before analytics, but how did those people back then do marketing planning? They tried and listened to the customer. And I was watching a podcast recently, and the person made an example of Steve Jobs when he created the iPod, or when he created it. He was confident that people would type on glass and it will sell. But fast forward to now, if it was now and he's trying to pitch that, even venture capitalists and all those funders will say it's a wrong idea because it doesn't have data. But he had data, he had customer insight, he had conviction, he understood the customer really, really well. So for effective marketing planning, what I advocate for my clients that I've worked with is to make sure we listen to the customer. And there's also always a subject matter expert within each business. So the subject matter expert sometimes has internal corporate speak. The focus, because they're so used to the product, they sometimes are not saying what the customers want, they're saying what they think the customer wants. So that's why in some instances it's good to have like an external stakeholder, like a marketing consultant like myself, to come in and help you understand your target customer, understand what channel, where do they congregate in, what triggers their emotion to buy, what triggers their emotion to buy again, what triggers their emotion to become brand advocates.
What would you advise to people who are struggling doing their marketing planning for their business?
First thing I want you to look at as a marketing leader is look at your ways of working. When you talk about ways of working, I mentioned earlier on that marketing transcends beyond just marketing function. It transcends to customer service, customer experience. Look at your ways of working. How does the handoff go from the end-to-end activity? So basically, you want to create a situation where activities are clustered together, working towards a particular KPI. So you have content, video marketing, paid advertising, all these strands working together as a squad. So you have teams, and this is another conversation about agile ways of working. Agile ways of working wasn't developed for marketing, so you need to be careful how you structure your team. But the most important thing you want to pay attention to if you have an existing team is look at the ways of working. If you do not have an existing team, you need to look at, okay, what are the skill and the capabilities that you need? Do you need to have something in-house? Do you need to work with an agency? Do you need a hybrid model? Once you have an understanding of the ways of working that would execute the strategic goals that you have, that is one thing. Then another thing is assumptions. You need to look at your team and look at your marketing planning process. It's difficult because every organization have assumption. A very, very popular assumption is that SEO is free. And you go into organizations that have 70% of their traffic coming from organic. Sometimes there's certain assumptions that we don't need to invest in this, we need to invest in this. But those are assumptions that are not validated. So ask yourself the question, in your marketing departments, in your marketing generally, and your planning that you've done previously, what are the inherent assumptions? As a marketing leader, the best way for you to know about your assumptions is to speak to the people that are executing. When I say speak to the people that are executing your marketing strategy, I don't mean bring them into a meeting room and like, tell us about our assumption. They'll be petrified. They're not going to say anything. You need to create like an anonymous survey, give the execution part of your organization, those people that are in the weeds or the actual people that execute, that create the campaigns, that create your landing page, the people that optimize your website, the people that do your paid advertising, that create your content, the people that create your paid ad, your television ad, your radio ad. You need to create a survey that allows them feedback to you as an organization. Those insights and those information is what you then use for your marketing strategy. So you have that perception that people that are creating marketing strategy are not involved in execution. But how are you going to create a marketing strategy or a marketing plan and then hand it over to someone that wasn't involved in the planning process, that wasn't involved in the budgeting, and you just say, hey there, go execute? And you have certain situations where an agency would create a strategy, like an SEO strategy, a paid advertising strategy, and then hand it over to the senior stakeholders, and the senior stakeholders would then hand it over to execution, go execute. So
That's sounds like there's a lot of potential for overlap between people in an organization managing the marketing planning and execution. How do you keep those lines, I guess, of visibility clear in terms of what's happening and who is doing what without having very senior people bogged down with kind of the day-to-day tasks and activities?
That's a good question. So, in a practical standpoint, you have each channel has a functional head, and that functional head is responsible for getting those insights, those feedback, those recommendations into what the plan should be from their team. And those people will then come together as a squad and have conversations, open conversation. It's difficult because this is where you need like a strategic consultant coming in, no skin in the game, taking unbiased, taking those information from all those senior stakeholders within each channel and then feeding that back. So marketing planning, normally you have a situation where a bulk of time is spent creating the marketing plan. And then when it comes to execution, you just hand it over to the execution team. I keep mentioning this. But one problem is the key decision makers do not have further communication with the execution, not until the next cycle, maybe the end of the quarter, or when they're about to review the data. Oh, something is not going well. But what needs to happen in most organizations, and this is very, very common in smaller organizations, that's why smaller organizations are able to implement marketing more effectively. They're able to move faster, more nimble than bigger organization. Because the person involved in decision making for smaller, mid-sized enterprise organizations is also involved in the execution. They have visibility of the execution. That doesn't happen in large organizations. So you want someone with decision-making authority involved. And we all complain about meetings, the volume of meetings, but there's some important meetings that you need to have on a weekly basis. The senior stakeholders need to have visibility, not micromanaging, but have visibility of the execution phase. So with me, when I work with clients, we normally have meetings maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, to we talk strategy, we talk planning, we talk budget, we talk about how we can move money around. So that's the agile way where we know that, okay, this is the budget, this is what we initially agreed we were going to work on, it's not working, let's pause that, let's move the money here. But the goal, the most important KPI, is where the money comes in. Every other KPI in front of it is nice to have, but in reality, they're vanity metrics. My KPI as a consultant is my bank account. My website data, all those data, doesn't mean anything. If money doesn't come in, then all the activities is not working.
You mentioned also previously aligning marketing planning and execution in relation to the KPIs.
Yeah.
What is your view, from your experience, about potentially aligning marketing planning and execution alongside the customer journey, or overlaying that process against the key customer journey steps?
So, across some of the organizations that I've worked with, I always highlight that the most important part of marketing is the content. Some people will say content is king. Everybody says things like that. But the content is one part where, for all those journeys, the question then becomes, do you have a centralized content team, or do you have a decentralized content team? Because if you look across everything, the ads for branding, the website content, the direct marketing, the email, the Google ads, the social media, there's one single consistency across all of them, is content. So when you talk about the customer journey map, the customer journey mapping, and the type of content that you use for those journeys will be different. So what you're trying to achieve is a situation where you've mapped out what triggers people to move from each stage of the funnel. What triggers people in the midst of all the noise? What type of content would trigger them to see your ad, to see your organization, and come to you and get that awareness? What type of content would trigger what type of emotion to make them move from each customer journey? And then at the end of the whole thing, you also need to listen to the customer, understand their feedback. So that's, for me, is the most important part of marketing planning. It's just down to understanding your customers.
So what are your key recommendations for the effectiveness of marketing planning process?
So the effectiveness of marketing planning process is the series of questions. I mentioned earlier on that the notion that there is a marketing planning template is criminal. I believe that for every marketing planning, for your situation analysis, there's a list of important questions to answer. For your objective and KPIs, there are a list of important questions to answer. And for how to get there, there's a list of important questions to answer. I've put together a marketing planning questionnaire. So irrespective of the organization you are, that questionnaire, the way you answer it would then apply to your case. One of the reasons why I believe that marketing planning should be structured in form of a questionnaire is because I'm also a qualified coach. I've realized the importance of coaching through intelligent questions. The reason why the question is important is because you always have subject matter experts within every organization, and every organization target customer is different. So frameworks and marketing models might and will not work in certain situations. But questions like for situation analysis, who is your target customer? Who is your ideal target customer? What do you need? What information do you need to feed to them to motivate them to buy? So those are the things that I offer in my one-to-one coaching session. So reach out to me and let's have a conversation, and I'll be glad to help you. Thank you.